Hello and welcome to Rotted Reviews. And yes, I know technically I am on strike in solidarity with the WGA. So what would cause me to cross my own picket line for review to post to my channel? Honestly, it just comes down to a bigger, deeper, and chronologically earlier promise that I do need to keep. For those of you that have followed the channel for the last several months, at the very least, you know that I have been going through some difficult times, one of which is the loss of my mother-in-law, who was just one of the most fantastic individuals I've ever known. And it hit my wife and I pretty hard. Way back about a month ago, my wife asked me to go ahead and review this movie on Mother's Day. The reason for this is my mother-in-law, Irene, always told us this story, that when she was first married, she was from Scotland, from Glasgow, and she married an American soldier and came to America while he was still in the military. So she was living in Virginia Beach. I want to say it was in military housing, still a little fuzzy on that aspect, but he was still being deployed. So she was in a new country, newly married, new area, didn't know anybody, and was essentially all alone and, happy, but struggling. And one of those nights on the one channel that the TV got, they aired The Screaming Skull. And the one thing that she recalled was just how absolutely shit in her pants terrified this movie made her. I have not been able to find out if she ever watched it ever again. There have been instances in which I've heard from people that, I revisited it, a couple decades later, and what was I even thinking? Can't find that here. I don't know if she ever watched it again, but she loved to tell the story of The Screaming Skull and how much it scared her during a fairly difficult and lonely and vulnerable moment in her life. And it just made for a thrilling story. So based on that story, like I said, I promised my wife that I would review The Screaming Skull on Mother's Day. And then the whole strike thing happened. And well, long story short, this is a promise that I don't want to break. So make no mistake, after this, there will be no more reviews on this channel until the strike is resolved. This is one time in which I just need to do this. So in memory of Irene, this is my review of 1958's The Screaming Skull. This movie was a pile. I really hate to put it this way, but I mean, this is a film that wound up making it into season 10 of Mystery Science Theater 3000, and they typically don't attack films that are of good quality.
Nothing better than fresh roasted skull.
This was written by John Newell, Francis Marion Crawford, and directed by Alex Nichol. And this primarily follows the characters of Jenny and Eric Whitlock, who are newlyweds. And Eric is, prior to being a newlywed, was a widower. His first wife died under mysterious circumstances at an accident at their estate. And that estate is where he takes his new wife, Jenny, over to. My first wife died here. We're going to make a fantastic, happy little life together with that memory in place. And unfortunately, things start going wrong. Jenny becomes, starts seeing things, in particular, a screaming skull, as the title might suggest. And everything kind of, boils over into the actual elements of the story, which is all very predictable. It is almost lazy Twilight Zone-esque. And speaking of Twilight Zone, the fact is this movie is only 68 minutes long, so it barely registers any longer than an actual Twilight Zone episode. Only bad. Like real bad.
What's that up there?
Oh, that's where Mickey keeps his gardening things.
Who's Mickey?
The gardener.
The acting is absolutely stilted. The camera work is questionable. The effects were laughable. The plot and the writing were hammy at best. What this reminded me of more than anything else was it had the energy, the spirit of a William Castle feature, the grand epic, you'll thrill on, by the seat of your pants with the Emergo and all sorts of other little gimmicky things that were happening in the haunted and monster movies of the 50s. but without any of the actual William Castle charm or follow through that movies like House on Haunted Hill actually had. In fact, this movie even opens up with showing a coffin that gets opened up with, essentially, your name here. And if you were to happen to die of fright during this film, we will pay for your funeral expenses. It's just that kind of gimmicky promise that made me honestly thrilled to kick this on. And then I actually watched the movie and like, well, shit. I mean, currently this has a 3.9 out of 10 on IMDb. And for a classic haunted house movie, that's pretty low. And I can kind of see where it's coming from. It wasn't the worst movie I've ever seen, not by a long shot. And there is some fun to be had here. It's the kind of cheese where I can see why MST3K put this one in their sights in terms of something to riff on, because there's a lot to riff on. And for the best movies that are available to riff on are the ones that are bad, but almost in a fun way. And I do think that 1958's The Screaming Skull fits that bill. I don't know if I would recommend this movie to people, even as a cheese fest. I would be more inclined to recommend the Mystery Science Theater 3000 episode that features this movie. I think that would be just an infinite amount more fun. But as a classic film that is part of that gimmicky heyday, it is worth watching. It is worth at least noting and knowing about. And considering the history that I have with it in my family association now, The Screaming Skull will, for good or ill, always be a treasure to me. So thank you for watching this. I know it was a quick review. I just wanted to make this thing here. Have a great Mother's Day to those of you who are able to and comfortable with celebrating it. And I'll see you on my next review. I have no idea when that'll be. Could be months. Let's hope the WGA strike wraps up soon. So take care. I'll talk to you later. And remember, next time you want to watch a horror movie, first make sure that it's good and run it.